All right. Good morning, and thank you for joining us for the Healthy Transitions Colorado June 2016 webinar. My name is Miranda Meadow with the Center for Improving Value in Healthcare, and I'm really happy to be here with you today for our discussion on dementia-friendly communities of Northern Colorado. Healthy Transitions Colorado is run by operating partners, the Colorado Healthcare Association, Telegen, the Colorado Hospital Association, the Colorado Rural Health Center, the Colorado Behavioral Healthcare Council, and Health Teamworks, and is managed by the Center for Improving Value in Healthcare. Healthy Transitions Colorado is a collaborative effort focused on aligning and accelerating existing efforts to improve transitions of care for Coloradans. Our guiding principle is that by breaking down the silos of healthcare, we can foster true community care coordination across facilities, specialties, and practices. HTC coordinates the tools, resources, and efforts of many partners across the state, and we want to keep Coloradans healthy so that they can enjoy more of what our beautiful state has to offer. If you haven't already done so, we'd like to invite you to become one of our community partners and take the pledge to improve patient care transitions. To take the pledge and learn more about HTC, please visit our website at healthytransitionscolorado.org. And before I turn it over to Cyndy, I have just a few housekeeping items. So phone lines have been muted and will remain so throughout the webinar. We'll be using the chat feature available in the lower left-hand corner of your screen to field any questions, and that'll allow you to make comments on the discussion. Any questions posed to the presenter will be answered during the Q&A session after the presentation. This webinar is being recorded, and we will post it to the HTC website so you can access this information again at any time without cost. And now I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Cyndy Luzinski. Cyndy Luzinski is an advanced practice nurse and dementia practitioner with many years of experience working with her community case management clients in Northern Colorado, some of whom lived with dementia or served as care partners for those with dementia. You can learn more about her work at Dementia-Friendly Communities, northcolorado.org. Cyndy, I will now hand the presentation over to you.
Oh, well, this is going to be interesting because I can't see the slideshow at all on my computer. Okay.
Oh,
I think we're just going to play it by ear. You should be looking at the picture of the angel. Are you seeing that?
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right. So I'm just going to have to tell you to advance it, correct? Because we're having some technical difficulties here, it looks like.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm hoping that everybody on the phone can see it.
If you can't see it, let her know.
Yeah, please let me know.
Okay, well, we'll give it a try. Okay, so thanks for having me. I'm just representing this grassroots volunteer kind of low-budget initiative here in Northern Colorado, and we don't have it all figured out yet. But I definitely have a passion for helping other people catch the vision for dementia-friendly communities. So we'll just go from here and hope that technology keeps up with us. So go ahead and advance to the next slide, Miranda.
Okay.
There you go. I'm going to start with what's a dementia-friendly community look like? Why are we talking about this concept now? How did we even get where we're going here in Northern Colorado? What are we doing? And then I'll talk about why I'm a catalyst of sorts for this initiative and why I believe that the contented dementia approach, if it's used, or really any person-centered approach, if it's used, can enable well-being and more seamless care for anybody that's living with dementia. Next slide. So this is what a dementia-friendly community looks like. A dementia-friendly community isn't a separate community. It's really all of us from all sectors of the community, from senior healthcare agencies to memory facilities to hospitals to clinic staff, stores, banks, libraries, law enforcement, faith communities. It's looking at how can we improve communication, how are our buildings designed, what kind of transportation do we offer, what resources are available. It's all of us coming together so that people walking the dementia journey don't have to walk alone. Next slide. So in Northern Colorado, this is how we've defined dementia-friendly communities. We define them as a place where people with dementia are met with they're able to live as independently as possible. They're met with understanding. They're supported as needed to be safe. They're encouraged to maintain their social connections. And they're enabled to function in environments which minimize anxiety and maximize purpose, dignity, contentment, and joy. Next slide. As you can tell, we're obviously not the first community desiring to become more dementia aware or dementia friendly. The whole idea started in Belgium, and the UK and Australia embraced the concept years ago, and then more recently Wisconsin and Minnesota caught the vision for dementia friendly communities. And Watertown, Wisconsin was the first dementia friendly community in the United States, and my hope is that it really is becoming the new normal. There are a number of symbols that are used in communities to show that they're dementia friendly. So in some places you might see blue and yellow forget-me-nots, like in Canada and Scotland they have those, or red handkerchiefs in Belgium. But we've adopted the purple angel symbol partly because I like the story behind it, and it is becoming a new global symbol. Next slide. So I don't know if any of you have heard of Simon Sinek, but he's an author and a speaker who talks about starting with why, and really for anything. If you know the why behind your work, the what and the how follow. So having clarity with your why sustains you when what and how get a little bit messy and overwhelming. And so I'm starting with my why. Next slide. So this is my dad, this is my why. He was a trout researcher for the state of Wisconsin who had an exceptional career in trout stream habitat improvement. And he was legendary in Trout Unlimited circles for his accuracy in casting a fly rod. And he enjoyed fly fishing on the very streams that he had done research to improve the fishing. Smart guy. He was also a man who, well, he loved Jesus, he loved his family, and he loved fishing. That probably was the right order. And I'm clear about why I do what I do because I care, or why I care about dementia. It's because I want to honor my dad and the way that he lived his life. And so when I started to notice dementia symptoms, or when he started to notice them, I guess he told me about them before I noticed them. I thought, well, right then and there, I got to help him finish well. And so, again, what I'd like to do today is to help people finish well and live well, and actually maybe even finish better and live better than my dad did with dementia based on what we learned from the mistakes that were made in healthcare with him, and then even our own mistakes that we made. So I'm hoping that we can help other people from what we learned. And before I go into his story a little bit, I think we need to look at kind of the bigger picture, more specifically, why now? Which is the next slide. So why now for the whole dementia-friendly community concept? What's the urgency? What I learned something from a guy named Rory Vader who grew up in Colorado, and what he taught me, I think perfectly, he taught a lot of people this, but I think it perfectly explains why now for dementia-friendly communities. Next slide. So we have cattle in Colorado. Actually, he didn't teach me this. I knew this. So we have cows, we have cattle. But what he did teach was that when cows sense a storm coming, they try to avoid the storm. So typically storms in Colorado come from the west. Cows will turn to the east, and they'll try to outrun the storm. But the problem is cows are slow, and so the storm catches up to them. And the cows actually end up running right alongside with the storm rather than getting out ahead of it. And they end up experiencing the negative effects of the storm much harsher and much longer than they'd have to had they not tried to avoid and outrun the storm. Unlike many other places in the world, in close proximity to the cows in Colorado, we also have, next slide, buffalo. So when buffalo sense a storm coming, and again, typically they come from the west, they don't turn east, they turn and face the storm. And then just as that storm is cresting over the mountains, they'll charge directly through the storm, which means then that they still experience that storm, but they suffer in it much less harshly and for not as long as the cows had to suffer. So there's a lot less pain and a lot less frustration associated with it. To me, this is just the perfect analogy for the storm that we're facing, and that's the storm of the silver tsunami. In 2011, the first of the baby boomers turned 65, and every day since then, 10,000 baby boomers turned 65, and it's going to be like that for the next 14 years. So truly, that silver tsunami storm is upon us, and it is our time to act like the buffalo and charge that storm. In the next 10 years, 20% of our population is going to be over age 65, and actually in northern Colorado, it's going to be closer to about 30% because a lot of us aren't leaving. And since age is one of the biggest risk factors for dementia, again, I think that points to the fact that now is the time for us to do something and charge the silver tsunami storm. Next slide. Cell phones are not the other reason for dementia-friendly communities, but I think they point to an obvious reality, and that is if anybody's ever been on a plane, once you land, most people, the first thing we do is we turn on our cell phones, and then we watch that little icon go around, around, and around, searching for connection. Cell phones are designed to search for connection, and really we as humans are too, and research is supporting this. So much research has been done recently, and certainly there's more yet to be done, but it confirms that the relationship between loneliness and dementia exists, and numbers vary, but the evidence is really overwhelming that there's a clear risk for dementia among people who felt lonely. Rush University in Chicago actually found that people who felt lonely had twice the chance of developing dementia compared to people who didn't feel lonely. And along those same lines, there's some studies that suggest that caregivers have a 6 times higher chance of developing dementia themselves, particularly caregivers of people with dementia. And I don't know that it's clear in all the studies, but some thought is, is it related to stress? Is it related to the isolation and loneliness? Or is it related to notoriously poor self-care for caregivers with diet and exercise? To me, I think there's room for research there. And to me, if age and loneliness and caregiving were the only 3 risk factors, that's motivation enough for us to want to do something now. And dementia-friendly communities are all about connection. It's about relationships. It's making those connections now to establish supportive relationships that are going to minimize isolation and loneliness. And that is just going to improve the health of those in our communities in the long run. Stay on this slide. I'm just going to say a couple more things. Some research is being done related to a lot of other risk factors for dementia, including infections, even like Lyme disease. There's research being done on cures and treatments. But really, in the meantime, for those of us who aren't researchers, if we put so much focus on that, we miss the simple ways to make life better now for millions of people who are trying to live well with dementia. What I've learned from my dad and from people who are currently using the contented dementia approach for care is that it's not hard to make significant positive differences impacting our community, just one relationship at a time. Next slide. So how can we build and sustain dementia-friendly communities? There are frameworks out there for advancing dementia-friendly initiatives. We really don't need to figure it out on our own. Next slide. This is a glimpse of a few of the resources that are just rich with insights and practical advice. And I have a list of various resources at the end, and you can take a look at those. The Dementia Action Alliance, I'm going to read you something from that. It shares, like most resources do, that there is no strict template for dementia-friendly communities. So if you tuned into this webinar hoping you get a strict template, you're going to be disappointed. Each community must develop its own approach based on its unique cultural, geographical, spiritual, and human assets. Next. So nationally here, there's an Act on Alzheimer's model, and that was started in Minnesota, and that was used to help more than 30 communities in Minnesota become dementia-friendly. And really that's led the way toward creating dementia-friendly communities across our country. It's a model that's transferable anywhere. Next slide. And in fact, Act on Alzheimer's model was used in the Dementia-Friendly America initiative, which provided grants to several cities to help them become dementia-friendly, and Denver was one of those cities. There are a lot of helpful resources. That's okay. There's a lot of helpful resources on the Dementia-Friendly America website, and it's worth checking out. Okay, next slide. The Healthy Brain Initiative in Wisconsin developed its own toolkit with a model that's also proven to be successful. And so the next slide shows you that the Wisconsin model. Go ahead and switch. And you can see it appears a bit more random than the linear Act on Alzheimer's model, but based on the advice that we got from leaders and experts in Wisconsin and Minnesota, it's the model that we're using here in northern Colorado. So for us, because a lot of the groundwork had already been laid by other partnerships and efforts in this area, including what's called the Partnership for Age-Friendly Communities, this Wisconsin model really allowed for greater flexibility and hopefully sustainability for us here. So every community is unique, but so far this model seems to be working well for us. You can go to the next slide. What I appreciate most about this model is that it has the option to start somewhere. And I'm going to read from the toolkit. I'm quoting. The process for building dementia-friendly communities includes these recommended steps. However, a new initiative may start anywhere within the process to accommodate the uniqueness within the community. Really, the best advice I got from the leaders and experts that I talked to in Wisconsin and Minnesota was just start somewhere, and so that's what we did. On the next slide. And this is where we started. We did a soft start with this. So we started memory cafes almost a couple years ago, and memory cafes are social gatherings for people with mild to moderate cognitive impairment and their care partners who want to just remain socially engaged with people who are walking the same journey. So our memory cafes are a safe, supportive place where we play reminiscing games, we share concerns, we celebrate life, we eat, we listen to music, we laugh a lot. To me, they're proof that there's a lot of living to do even after a dementia diagnosis. Next slide. Because I was involved in memory cafes, Katie Fahrenbrook from the Alzheimer's Association invited me to participate in the B-Sharp Arts Engagement Planning Group. And so B-Sharp is this program that provides 30 people with dementia and their care partners the opportunity to attend 5 Masterwork Symphony performances and then be part of a study. The program was possible because of a partnership among Banner and Kaiser and Fort Collins Symphony and Alzheimer's Association, Larimer County Office on Aging, and CSU. And the research assessed cognition, mood, and that sense of connectedness for participants. And it's just been a great program. And we have a lot of other great projects and activities in northern Colorado, but really the energy and support for the B-Sharp program in particular became the impetus for this planning group to ask the question last fall, well, what's next? What's after this? And what we somewhat concluded was launching dementia-friendly communities was the natural outflow of the B-Sharp program. Next slide. What? Okay. So in just a little more detail, I'll tell you what we're doing in northern Colorado. And I hope above all else that we're sharing the truth about dementia, and that is on the next slide. Just because you lose your mind doesn't mean you lose your soul. I really credit my friend and author, she's from the UK, Louise Morse, for sharing that thought in one of her books. She writes about dementia, and she's such an advocate for paying attention to the spiritual needs of others, especially those with dementia, because it really is true. Our value doesn't lie in our ability to recall the recent past. We're not just what we remember. There's still living to do, even with cognitive decline. I think those kind of messages are so powerful if we can share them with our clients, with our patients. If they can hear from health professionals that, you know, we're going to be the ones that are there to meet you at that soul level. We're still going to be trying to connect with you emotionally and spiritually, so you're not going to have to go through this alone. And I also think this kind of message is good for people with dementia and all of us if we remember to treat people with dementia with that in mind, so that if neighbors and friends and family members realize the truth of this, it could really change things for all of us. I could go on about that. I won't. Go to the next slide. So here, the Dementia-Friendly Community Initiative isn't just one more great idea or project to invest in. Really, for us, it's very much about leveraging what we're already doing and who we already are. When I started the Memory Cafe and Care Partner Support Group at Timberline Church, others in our community were already providing a whole lot of other support to people living with dementia and their care partners. So there's a lot to leverage in this area, and I suspect that elsewhere in Colorado, as people communicate and connect, they're going to discover plenty to leverage in their own communities as well. So let me just start with expertise. Next slide. I have a lot of these things listed, not that people outside of northern Colorado are necessarily going to know what they are, but I'm hoping it might trigger ideas for what you might have available in your own communities. For us, I mean, I get that not every community has nonprofits and for-profit organizations playing well together in the sandbox. Leaders and people with expertise in dementia care from many organizations in northern Colorado have expressed support for this initiative. And I'm talking like people from UC Health and Kaiser and Banner and Columbine and Home Instead and Homewell Senior Care and Stepping Stones and Elder House and Aspen Club and Seasons Club. I mean, all these people that might otherwise be competing really have at least verbally been supportive of wanting to make a difference together across competitive business lines. And I think we need to leverage that for the benefit of those on the dementia journey. We also want to leverage our resources, which is the next slide. So I'll just highlight a couple ways that we can do that. So when we do dementia-friendly community presentations, I like to do them in person because I think that helps people become engaged in the process and have a sense of ownership. And plus we like to get their picture with the banner and all that kind of stuff. But maybe for refreshers for like first responders or the law enforcement people, and rather than us coming and talking to them again next year, maybe they go online and go on the Alzheimer's Association website and complete the Approaching Alzheimer's online training. Go back to resources. And that Alzheimer's Approaching Alzheimer's training was a training that's developed by first responders for first responders. You're one slide behind. There you go. Okay.
Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulty on my end. Are we good?
We're flexible. In the dementia world, you really need to be flexible. It's okay. Another resource, say for businesses, if they just want to train like a new staff member or they want to refresh their knowledge of dementia care, they could go online and on the Home Instead website, and there's business training on their website for free as well. So to me, it's really anything that's giving you accurate information and a person-centered approach. As long as that's taught in the resource of choice, I don't think we need to own or control the resources that people decide to use. What we need to do is leverage them. And we need to embrace and support any strategy that's going to make it better for somebody with dementia to live and help them and their care partners. So actually a group of us who do some dementia education met recently really to kind of verify our assumptions that, yes, accurate information is being shared and we're encouraging a person-centered approach. And that meeting was helpful because we realized we need to keep maintaining that open communication and share what's helpful in our teaching. So I'm sure we'll continue to do that. Okay, we also want to leverage our activities. Now you can go to that slide. So when you're leveraging resources, you end up with a whole lot more activities to leverage as well. So not only did we leverage the Be Sharp Arts Engagement Program to initiate the dementia-friendly community concept, but we also were leveraging the Be Sharp experience to help give people who were participants a voice. So I want to just read something that one of them said. They said, the Be Sharp program has given me the opportunity to be a voice in this whole thing. Things I didn't think that I'd be doing or saying are appearing and getting published. It's just crazy, but I feel good about doing it. And then another one said, this is giving me access to influence people's lives that I never would have before. I like being part of something bigger with the research. So just like we're trying to leverage Be Sharp, and that program was great in and of itself, but again, leveraging makes it greater. We're doing the same thing with memory cafes. Great activities in and of themselves, but even better when you can leverage them. So we have one couple from our memory cafe who has now started a Bible study once a week with some of the other cafe attenders and then other people who are interested. And they call their Bible study Remembering Jesus When You Can't Remember What You Had for Breakfast, which I thought that was cute. And they even have a website now. So it's called rememberingjesus.com, I think. It might be .org, I'm not sure. And there's a couple care partners also who have wanted to share their experiences with the contented dementia approach, their wives taking care of their husbands. And they'll tell you that that approach has just changed their lives. And they've wanted to be able to share their stories with other care partners. And so we've been able to help them do that at some public events like Elder Care Resource Day and at an Aspen Club class recently. And this care partner said, I want to feel like what we're going through has greater purpose, that it matters for good. I want to do all I can to help others. And so when you leverage activities, you really get to help people find greater purpose in their life. And then finally, we want to leverage the momentum. And obviously there's a lot of momentum here in Northern Colorado. The Partnership for Age-Friendly Communities has been collaborating with many others in the community really since 2013, and probably before then, but really since 2013 they've been focusing on housing, mobility, culture of aging issues, and health and wellness issues. Those are their priority areas. And structurally, how we have done it is we sort of tucked ourselves as Dementia-Friendly Communities initiative underneath the health and wellness priority group of that Partnership for Age-Friendly Communities. Sharing the Care initiative has done the same thing. So both of us are kind of under that Partnership for Age-Friendly Communities. So some of this consists of some of the same people. We're all intersecting, we're cooperating, we're striving to efficiently and effectively improve the culture of dementia care without duplicating efforts. And by keeping our relationships open and collaborative, we're really able to do more together. Next slide. So I want to go back to leveraging resources for just a minute with this slide. We have a lot of national and international resources, probably like never before. Alzheimer's Speaks is one website that will link you to a lot of the Purple Angel projects internationally. And Lori LeBay from Minnesota has been instrumental in helping a lot of communities move ahead in changing the culture of dementia care in this country. And if you're looking at doing dementia-friendly initiatives in your area, you should invite her because she would motivate your community. And I'm still hoping that we get to invite her here to Northern Colorado one of these days. I don't work for her. I just want her. I'm just wanting her to come here and speak. I don't think I'm the only one who thinks that she is the leading voice in giving a voice to people who are the real experts in dementia care, meaning that she gives a voice to the people who are living with dementia. So in addition to these informative radio shows that she has, she hosts these regular webinars called Dementia Chats, in which people with dementia share their insights. And if I have time at the end, I want to tell you about some of the insights that they shared about making their medical appointments more worthwhile. When I go and talk to associates in family medicine here, or I was just at the pulmonary clinic last week, I share with that staff the insights that I heard from Dementia Chats. And really, if we want to improve health care, particularly the transitions of care, we've got to listen to the people that are recipients of that care. And my guess is everybody on this webinar knows that. So go ahead, you can switch sides. You'd think I'd work for Lori LeBay. I don't. we have some goals under our Partnership for Age-Friendly Community. So the Partnership for Age-Friendly Community is a 501c3, which allows for tax-deductible donations that people could make to us through them. So those people that are wanting to send thousands and thousands of dollars to us, they can do that through the partnership as long as they designate it to us, to use for educational materials or website maintenance and stuff like that. But so far we're still a volunteer initiative and we haven't solicited funds very aggressively, although that's probably going to change soon because we have a party at the end of the year to get ready for. But under that Partnership for Age-Friendly Community, we've structured ourselves that we are a self-directed work team. We have about 6 to 8 people. We meet every couple weeks, and we specifically work on these 3 goals, essentially making a website that's kind of all things dementia in Northern Colorado with links to various resources. That is an ongoing project. Even though we have a date of June 30th, it's really going to be ongoing. We want to educate 30 different groups on excellent customer service with that little extra compassion. And I would say we're well on our way, probably going to exceed that number. And then our 3rd goal is planning our fabulous party at the end of the year, which the theme is going to be Enter My Reality. So our group of about 6 to 8 people, sometimes we digress into the what-if possibilities, but generally we really do stay pretty focused on these 3 goals for this first year of the initiative. Next slide. So here's the targeted business areas. They're businesses where we would want to do some education. So businesses that are used by people with likely dementia, so businesses that have to do with their medical conditions, businesses that are part of everyday life, influential businesses, and then those that are part of recreation or entertainment. Next slide. So according to our model, we started somewhere, and we are evolving as needed in the process. And so I'm truly speaking to you as somebody who's in this process. It's not after we've figured it out. And really right now we are still clarifying some roles so that we're encouraging each other's strengths. We're refining our message to get it a bit more concise. And then we're looking at kind of next steps for sustainability and funding. Like, for instance, we're trying to figure out, should we become our own 501c3? Or do we want to remain a volunteer initiative? Do we want to more aggressively seek out sponsorships? Do we want to look at, like collaborative impact partnerships? We don't know. I mean, we're having these discussions. Some philosophical decisions need to be made in the future. I don't know where we're headed on that. I mean, I don't even know like my own role in this. I felt like I was in a really good position initially to be somewhat of a catalyst for this initiative because I didn't work for any of the competing organizations and yet in our area, but I had good working relationships with people from those organizations. And so it gave me time to kind of assess the desire and the willingness in our communities for collaboration. And honestly, I think that the desire for collaboration is authentic. And so we'll see where it goes. It's pretty exciting. Next slide. This is somewhat what business training includes if I'm doing it. If other people are doing it, it may not necessarily include the whole contented dementia approach. But what we realize is there's no one way to teach people necessarily how to well serve people who have dementia. But as long as we're helping to increase compassion and awareness, and we're providing some simple techniques and strategies that help people interact with those that are living with dementia, that's the main goal. So next slide. The Lincoln Center was the first business in Northern Colorado to participate in dementia-friendly training, and it kind of makes sense because they were the host site for the Be Sharp Arts Engagement Program. Next slide. The Senior Center hopped on board pretty quickly last December, so November was our first training for Lincoln Center. Senior Center jumped on in December, and then since then, you can go to the next slide. I think there's only a few examples on there. There's been about 12 or so businesses that have wanted to become dementia-friendly so far. There's others in the wings, which involves maybe 20 or so different groups that have been taught. The entire Fort Collins Police Department participated in dementia-friendly education. So that was like 250 people. And hopefully, Loveland's going to follow, and we have some other people also in the wings. You can go to the next slide. So this is the window cling that's hung in businesses around here, which have participated in dementia-friendly training. I'm checking the time. I don't want to run over. Okay. So we've learned some lessons as we've gone along, and let me just go to the next slide and show you those. They're all going to pop up at you at once because there's no animation, so hopefully you don't get overwhelmed. So the things we've learned is we are better together. Katie Fahrenbrook is so good from our Alzheimer's Association in emphasizing that. The second thing we've learned is that you don't have to have all the steps figured out to start. You just need to have courage to take the first step. And really just surround yourself with people who get the why behind what you're doing and aren't afraid to ask what if. And then that leads to the third lesson of it's kind of a bonus. If you have people who are asking what if, but at the same table you have people answering, well, let's find out. And that's really happened quite a bit here. It's been really fun. Like one of the examples is we were at our planning group for B Sharp, and somebody said, well, what if we have a reception for couples at the B Sharp program before and at intermission of the symphony performances? Well, let's find out. And what we found out was that the social aspect of those receptions at the concerts provided such a sense of normalcy and connection for those care partners that has to be part of our program for next year. Same thing with, there were some people that were attending our support group at Timberline who were reluctant to attend and leave their loved ones at home anymore because the dementia was progressing. And so my friend Andrea, who's on our self-directed work team, and she has her master's in gerontology and she homeschools 7 kids, she said, well, what if I facilitated an intergenerational memory cafe while you, which is talking to me, continued to meet with the support group? And that's what we've done. And that intergenerational memory cafe has been a huge success for the last 6 months. So it's just asking the what if things, but also having people around you who aren't afraid to try new things. And sometimes that can get messy, as can collaboration, although lots of people doing a lot of good things is just not bad. So that's why collaboration is messy sometimes. And I'll share an example of that in a little bit. And then our fifth revelation is if your vision isn't big enough, it's probably, or if your vision doesn't scare you a little bit, it's probably not big enough. And I think we're all plenty scared, so we're on the right track with that. So that'll take me back to, I think, my dad, which is my why. And you've met him. So go to the next slide. What happened with him is one time when I went home to visit him, he said to me, Cyndy, I am having such trouble focusing. I can't seem to multitask anymore, and I feel like I'm living in a fog. And that was this defining moment for me where I thought, oh, here we go down this dementia journey. I really got to learn everything I possibly can about dementia care because I really want to help him finish well. And that kind of became this overriding passion for me. And so after my visit, I went home and I read one of Louise Morse's books in which she talked about using the contented dementia approach in the Pilgrim homes where she worked in the UK. And I was intrigued with the idea and really the claim that apparently they couldn't really tell the difference between the people with dementia and those without dementia in their homes when they were using the contented dementia approach. And so since I happened to be going to London 3 weeks later, I wanted to see it in action at the Pilgrim homes, but my schedule didn't allow it. However, Louise arranged for me to meet Penny Garner, who developed the whole contented dementia approach, and Penny sat down with me and explained the whole thing. And since then, I've looked at a lot of other approaches, but honestly, I tend to look at them through the eyes of the contented dementia approach. So you can go to the next slide. There really are a lot of other approaches, and as long as they're person-centered, they're probably fine, as long as they're being used. And any one of these on this slide would make life much better for somebody with dementia. The key is getting people, especially in healthcare, to apply them. So I suppose the reason why I like the contented dementia approach the best and why I gravitate to it is that Penny starts with why. And she uses this photograph album analogy to explain what happens in our minds with dementia, and that helped me understand why her approach works. It also helped me understand why really any person-centered approach would work. You can advance the slide. So I like the contented dementia approach because it's so simple. It really costs nothing financially for care partners to learn it. And it's really transferable anywhere at any time and can create lifelong well-being for somebody with dementia. But again, the key is to get people to learn it and to use it. And since it gave me hope, I'll share with you just kind of an abbreviated version of what Penny shared with me. And it's just a non-medical explanation of what happens with our minds. So go ahead and go to the next slide. This is what Penny explains. So she says our minds are like a photograph album, and each experience is recorded as the photograph and stored in the album of our minds a split second after it happens. Each photograph has two features, facts surrounded by the associated feelings, both positive and negative. And the photos are taken and stored automatically and unconsciously in the background of our lives. And our albums fall open quite naturally to today's page, and that's where the latest photographs are entering the album. It's this latest information that we must have if we're going to make sense of what we're doing, who we're with, where we are, and why. As time goes by, page after page after page of new photographs build up in these photograph albums of our mind. And our albums actually become our most valuable resource, and we consult them all the time. So every time we say, let me think, or we just pause to think, we're actually checking previous photos in our album for the facts that we need in order to make sense of what's happening in our lives at any given moment. We can turn back to much older pages in the photograph albums of our mind, but we rarely do this. I mean, we only do it like if we're reminiscing or something. But normally we live on today's page with occasional help from some recent pages. So let me give you an example. So as I was signing in my computer for the webinar today, I had to consult my little photo album in my mind and say, let me think. Now, what did Miranda tell me about how to sign into here and make this webinar work? And then I remembered, and okay, now I'm back on today's page. Now, it didn't work, but that's another issue. But I was just consulting the photo album of my mind for things that she had told me a few days ago. Okay, so next slide. What happens with dementia is that it introduces a whole new type of photograph to the photograph album, and it's unique to people with dementia. And that new type of photo is called a blank. So the blank is different from normal photograph in that it provides us a record of the feelings of what just happened, but it doesn't contain any facts. So the feelings take up all the space where the facts normally would be. Next slide. At first, the blank represents just an occasional blip of lost factual information, not a big deal. But with dementia, after the arrival of the first blank in the album, further blanks follow. And then they just kind of continue randomly, intermittently, with increasing frequency. And eventually, somebody with dementia that affects their memory, they end up with these long ribbons of blanks, which represents like bigger chunks of facts and time that they don't have access to. And then the next slide. Eventually, in the photo album of a person with dementia, the type of dementia that's affecting their memory, their photo albums are filled with page after page after page of feelings-only blanks, interrupted maybe by an occasional random intact photo that contains both the facts and the associated feelings. So if you've ever visited somebody kind of in late-stage dementia and they say something that's so lucid and current that it kind of shocks you, that's one of those intact photos getting through. So this whole photograph album analogy helped me understand why feelings become so much more important than facts for somebody with dementia, and it explains why with cognitive loss, emotional and spiritual needs become so much more apparent. It also helps me understand why people with dementia really cue into nonverbals, because it really is all about nonverbals and the feelings. So for anybody in early mid-stage dementia that affects their memory, they haven't lost their ability to reason, they've just lost their recent facts. So they're going to very reasonably turn back to pages in their album from days before dementia, and they're going to try matching certain old intact photos to provide context for what's happening in their life today, which would help explain what they're feeling. So let me give you an example. So when we're anxious, we want to do something to remedy the situation and then bring ourselves back to this place of calm. That's called exercising our sense of agency. So yesterday I had the opportunity to exercise my sense of agency when I got anxious. I was leaving to go to a presentation in Loveland, and I was ready to go, couldn't find my keys. Yay. So I'm looking, where are my keys? Where are my keys? I looked on the hook near the back door. They weren't there. I looked in the basket on the shelf. I looked in my purse. I dumped my purse. So I'm exercising my sense of agency to try to figure out where in the world are my keys. I looked in my computer bag. I dumped my computer bag. I looked in my car. I looked in the garbage can. And I kept thinking, okay, these people don't know me. They don't know if I'm reliable at all. If I'm late and I don't show up, how are they going to know this is a fluke? Where are my keys? And I could not find them. And ultimately, I didn't find them. I exercised my sense of agency by asking my neighbor to use her car, and I got there on time. Found them later. So when somebody with dementia is anxious, though, they don't have those facts to know why they're anxious. And so they're going to very reasonably go back into the photo album of their minds to find an intact photo of the facts surrounded by the same anxious feelings that they're feeling right now. And they're going to take those facts from the photo and bring it to today's page so that they have context to match their feelings. So they have to do kind of what I did, let me think, how do I do this webinar? So they do let me think, why am I anxious? Kind of unconsciously asking themselves that. I know why. The dog died, and I need to bury the dog before the kids get home from school, because if the kids get home from school and they see this dead dog, they're going to be upset. I need a shovel. Give me a shovel. Where's a shovel? And we look at that person like they're crazy, but really they're very reasonably taking facts from pre-dementia days, bringing that context to today's page to make sense of what they're feeling. And so if we try to correct them, oh, no, Edna, you don't need a shovel, you're in rehab, we interfere with that ability to help her use her sense of agency, and then we cause more anxiety in the process. And then we have to medicate and with anti-anxiety meds. And so rather than just entering their reality and helping them know that they have a friend of, oh, you need a shovel, let's go find a shovel. I bet we can find one over here. And, oh, look, there's Joe over there. He can maybe take care of this for us. Why don't we go sit over here and have some tea? And then while you're having tea, we can look at what's the underlying cause for that agitation in the first place. And maybe Edna was hot or cold or tired or thirsty or hungry. Maybe she's in pain. Maybe she needed to go to the bathroom. Maybe she was bored. But unfortunately, rather than entering the reality of somebody who's anxious or agitated and figuring out what that unmet need is, we way too often label them as just having behaviors, and then we medicate for agitation. And I just think what much better care we could give if everybody knew to enter the reality of a person with dementia and then look for that underlying cause for agitation. And let me just give you, I'm going to finish with 3 golden rules that Penny gives us for somebody who's got a blanking photo album. So next slide. I'll do it quick. So the 3 golden rules: don't ask questions, learn from the expert, and don't contradict. Go ahead, next slide. So it takes practice, especially for nurses, because we're always asking questions, and we don't even know. I mean, we ask questions without even know we're asking questions, like, can I take your blood pressure? Well, we're going to take it anyway. Let's just say we're going to take your blood pressure. It takes practice to have conversations without questions, but in order to avoid anxiety building up in people with dementia, we need to learn to converse in ways that encourage a response without demanding a response. So when a question is asked, somebody with dementia can feel like they're being confronted or they're being checked on. So even a question as simple as, did you put bird food in the bird feeder? The better way would be, I wonder if the birds need food. It looks like the bird feeder's empty. I suppose it's our day to feed the birds. So just rewording things so that we're encouraging responses without demanding responses. Golden rule number 2, next slide, is learn from the expert, and the person with dementia is the expert. So not only are they an expert at knowing what facts they need from their photo albums of their mind to bring to today's page to make sense of what they're feeling, but they also were an expert at something in their life. And Penny talks about we need to call out who they were at their finest hour, because that's going to help create contentment and joy and confidence for them. So like with my dad, he might not have been able to keep track of his finances anymore, and that frustrated him. And he wasn't a very talkative guy anyway, but if I could talk to him about fishing or Jesus, his expertise would shine, and it would give him confidence to participate in conversation, and then that would lead us to other conversations and really a sense of well-being for him. And then the third golden rule is don't contradict, and that just reflects the truth that being kind is more important than being right. So if our loved ones or our clients need to use facts from their photo album that are 10 or 50 years old in order to make sense of the world around them, we need to let them do that and not argue or about the photos they want to use, or correct, or criticize, or reorient, or contradict. We need to be humble enough to enter their reality. Next slide. So these are things that I think it's important to remind care partners of, that they're the ones that need to change, that they need to be able to communicate key information to everybody about their loved one, and that they're not alone on this journey. And the key information is on what I call a dementia passport. Penny has like her version of dementia passport, so you can go ahead and change the slide. So this is the information that ought to be included on a dementia passport. And a dementia passport is a communication tool used to help provide a sense of well-being and contentment for people with dementia. And actually, if this passport started early enough, people with dementia can complete their own passports by making their wishes known. In healthcare, if we just learned those first two things, like the person's area of passion and expertise and a name of a trusted person, we could use those two facts to establish quick rapport with our clients and patients and provide environments where they feel safe. Like if you know somebody's a fisherman, hey, I heard the fishing was great up at the Poudre Canyon, and then that sets the tone for a much more relaxed visit. The past can be leveraged to help that person function with greater ease in the present. And Penny talks about making the present of the past. The Sharing the Care group is about to pilot a patient passport program here in northern Colorado, and it's meant to be used like a travel passport containing information for individuals as they travel through the healthcare system. And Peggy Budai, who works with Sharing the Care, describes it as kind of a file of life on steroids, if your communities have those file of life that go on people's refrigerators. So it contains things like advance directives, personal preferences, medications, and medical history and stuff like that. Well, working with our Dementia-Friendly community group, that patient passport now has a dementia passport page built into it for people that have dementia. And that's a perfect example of kind of the synergy of various initiatives working for one common good. And again, the key is going to be to get people to use them and to get us in healthcare to access and apply that information. I think that leads to a whole lot of other what-if questions, like what if communities really were using these dementia passports? Could dementia patients maybe not have longer lengths of stay compared to those without dementia if they're in the hospital? Could they be discharged not requiring that higher level of care, which they so often require once they're in the hospital? I mean, there's just a whole lot of research that can be done around those kinds of things. Could falls and the use of anti-anxiety meds be reduced? So there's just so much opportunity for us, I think, to improve health care for the ever-increasing numbers of people in our country who are going to be living with dementia. And so let me just end with last slide. There you go. My greatest hope is that we, as we become more dementia aware and as we become dementia friends, that we're able to more effectively help those with dementia live in the moments of love and grace wherever they may find them. And I hope that for the people who seem to be forgetting, that we are the people in our communities that don't forget them. And I think that's it. I don't know if I have time for questions, but we'll see. And then the following slide is my contacts, and the very last slide, if you want to go to that, is a list of just some different resources.
Great. Thank you, Cyndy. And everybody on the call, I will send out the slides as well as a link to the recorded webinar probably on Monday once it's ready to post. I know we just have a couple minutes, but we do have a few questions, and if there's anybody else with questions, go ahead and submit those in the chat box. The first question is from Amelia, and she asks, I know there is a Dementia-Friendly Denver work group and discussions have begun for Dementia-Friendly Boulder and Dementia-Friendly Aurora, but do you know of any others in Colorado, Cyndy?
I've recently talked to the people in Boulder. No, I don't. I mean, yeah, no, I don't. I mean, there's a bunch of different cities in northern Colorado that I've heard from, but I'm not sure of others.
Okay. And then Allie Peth asks, can anybody with mild memory loss and their caregivers go to the Memory Cafe, and how do we get information about this?
Yes, they can. And on our all things dementia, on Dementia-Friendly Communities NoCo, I know it's a long name, Dementia-Friendly Communities NoCo.org website, we do have information about the memory cafes there. We have one at Timberline Church on the third Mondays of the month. We have one at McKenzie Place on the third Tuesdays of the month, and now there's a new memory cafe in Loveland on the third Wednesdays of the month, and the times are on the website. I think our website's actually going to, I think you actually can now type in dfcnoco.org, and I think it'll take you to our Dementia-Friendly Communities website. And then also we put stuff on our Facebook page too, Dementia-Friendly Communities of Northern Colorado Facebook page.
Excellent. And then Barbara Famey asks if you could say a few more words about validation therapy. I don't know, I think you kind of went over it, but if you have anything to add.
Naomi Thiel. We have a link to her on our website. I would say go there and I'm trying to look for my stuff on that. By the time I find it, I wouldn't be able to give you much intelligent information about it other than it's just so important to validate the feelings behind the message that people are giving us with dementia and to relate to them on that personal level. I think it's actually, whenever I was learning about it, I thought it's really good for us before dementia to make sure that we're resolving those issues emotionally while we still can. So for people in their 40s and 50s, it's just a good lesson to pay attention emotionally and heal the wounds that you need to heal so that maybe they don't crop up later. But I would say go to the website. There's a link to Naomi Thiel, and even I think it shows a video of her interacting with somebody just so tenderly. It's really touching.
Great. And I don't see any more questions, so I just want to say thanks for joining us. And for those of you still on the line, I just wanted to remind you that we are having our August symposium for Healthy Transitions Colorado, and that's on the 22nd and 23rd of August. So keep your eye out for more information. And again, this recording of this webinar will be up on our website in a few days. Thank you, everybody, and I hope you have a great rest of your Friday.